Hi, it looks like I'm on a bit of a video making spree this week. So this is an article from RT, and it's following on really from my previous videos that I've made recently. But this video is probably aimed mostly at, waking women up to what's going on according to, how the world conceptualises the female form, the female human being. And so Justin Humphreys of Oklahoma is trying to, make abortions difficult for women. And, he's telling women that they're a host and, take responsibility. And if you're irresponsible, don't claim, well, I can just go and do this and this with another body, when you're the host and you invited that in. And this same guy has suggested that, he's saying that women, before they have an abortion, must have the consent of the father. Excuse me, which is going to make it difficult for women that have been raped, isn't it? Now, the thing that I would like to point out here is this word host, and this is a very ancient idea of as it says on this programme, as the woman as a vessel for life, and that's all she is. The woman is just there as a vessel for life. So therefore, what responsibility do women really have, as far as consciousness is born into an existing antiquated consciousness that still objectifies women, still sees them as a host for life, and that's it. Okay, so we've got a very strange psychology that's arisen from century upon century after century of women being degraded, denied their rights, told that they must obey their man, and all this kind of thing that went on for so long. And it's only really in the last 100 years, after thousands, that women have slowly clawed back a few rights. And today, I suppose women in America and in Europe feel that they are liberated. But the truth is, they're only liberated to live like men. They're still expected to work while they're having a period. They still have to pay for their periods. And there is still that general social ethos of, shame and embarrassment around periods, as if there's something, but you've just got to keep that to yourself. And so, the woman is oppressed from the moment she starts to menstruate and has to deal with this huge secret. And she's also going to have to pay for it. Now, I'm not anti-capitalist, as I've said before. I believe in the small businesses and cooperatives, family businesses, that kind of thing. I don't think they are a problem. And whatever we use in this world, that people make for us and provide for us, we do have to pay for, and we do need to try and earn a little bit of profit off the things we produce, just in order to keep producing them, to reinvest, to make better products, and also to cover small businesses for times when businesses are, trade runs slack, as it does from time to time. So, there's a need for making some profit, but also to do it in a responsible way. Now, a lot of people would call that socialism. Now, personally, I would say as a human being, I'm naturally a socialist. But because the word socialist has been so misapplied and misinterpreted and usurped, you know, I mean, I've been having an ongoing debate with somebody on Twitter about socialism, and, you know, he's trying to tell me that Hitler and Stalin were both socialists, and, you know, I've been explaining that no, they called themselves socialists, but they were liars, you know, because that isn't socialism. What Stalin did isn't socialism. What Hitler was doing isn't socialism. You know, what Obama did isn't socialism. And certainly what Trump's doing is nowhere near socialism. And the New World Order definitely isn't socialist. Okay. But I can understand why people get confused about this idea that the corporation wants to impose a kind of socialism on the world. And, you know, so let's just have a look at the corporation, and this is the situation that we find ourselves in right now, where the government and our legal system is protecting the corporations, and the people are left out in the cold, as it were, you know. And so this situation has arisen because the corporations are legally recognised as people, okay? So the richest people, the most powerful people, will control the government and the courts and the media and, you know, everything in society. And then that becomes something to serve them, you know. There's the government providing equal protection for the people. And who are these then? So this is the workforce. The corporation that has insisted on being granted the status of person as a human being, okay, because it's saying, I am one of these, has now it's established itself. It's saying these aren't human, these are stock, okay, for them to exploit, okay. So, you know, they're getting extra protection and every kind of protection that's available. Now, when it comes to the fact that half of the population of adult humans are menstruating and need products for those menstruations, so the corporation is profiting from making those products, but at the same time they're expanding and borrowing huge sums of money from the banks, you know, sums of money that aren't available to these people, but they are available to these big corporations who do waste money, gamble with it, and, you know, there's a big difference between a corporation, a global corporation providing, say, for example, the women of Britain's sanitary products because of the fact they menstruate, than there is for little British-based businesses within Britain producing for our needs and earning their little bits of profit and providing jobs and contributing to the system, you know, to our society, and earning money and profits that will remain in Britain and be of service to the British people, is a lot different to a corporation selling women's products from where? You know, products that are made all over the world, the money that the people pay for them in Britain, we don't know where it goes. Half of these corporations don't pay any taxes, you know, and they are funding all kinds of things, you know, which my previous video, Reclaiming the Silver Dollar, which I'll leave a link to that under this as well, you know, is explaining that, you know, they're involved in altering governments and things in other countries. So, in this sense, you know, the parent is the government, but the parent is looking after the corporations and, you know, these people are stock, and yet the corporation's legal status rests entirely, is founded entirely on the fact that the people, that it is a person. Okay, that's the irony of it. So now if we go to this image of the family, okay, so we have a male and a female human being, and they've got 2 children, a baby and a child. Now this woman, in order to have this baby, okay, she's obviously decided she can provide, if they've decided as a couple, they can provide a nice life for these children. They've brought them into the world. She has gone through 9 months of labour twice. 9 months pregnancy and then labour to give birth, immense pain. She's been through months of worry. She may have suffered postnatal depression, which is a common feature of childbirth now, and it is no wonder when you look at you know, what women are actually getting out of life and what is likely to happen, you know, the kind of world they've had to bring their child into. So we've got this whole scene here of nature, trees, grass, plants, flowers, people, children, okay, and this is what the corporation has taken ownership of and full control of. You know, they control especially what's in the heads, the mind, the brain. They keep that brain distracted with a whole host of media that provides news, entertainment, and then there's all the advertisements on it for the products that they're selling, products for hair, clothes, you know, you name it. They are selling it to us, but they don't care how they make their products, or, you know, most of their products are made through exploiting people, human beings. It's just that some human beings are privileged, okay, and this is an example really of the present world's most privileged families are white, middle class, upper middle class families. You know, when you look at their wealth, for each family like that, there's probably in the whole world 1 million people who live in abject poverty, just for the very fact that some families in the Western world are able to be maintained in a humane level of existence, which should really be available for everybody. And the corporations do that. You know, it's not that these people are evil, you know, they're good people, but the corporations only want to cater for a few good people, as they call, to raise good people, good, obedient, happy, mostly satisfied people. They only want a handful of those. They do want the majority to be impoverished, dissatisfied, highly competitive, and, you know, to hell with those that lose out. Now, the idea of a corporation, so, you know, if we look at this image here, so we've got a few big companies, and we see how these are parent companies then to a host of, you know, small companies. So you've got P&G, which is a global corporation, okay? It's not restricted to business just in one country, and, you know, I'm not saying that businesses should be only restricted to be provided in one country, but when you've got a corporation that is involved in offshore banking, and it owns all these products as well that are being sold all over the world, so that means, like I say, women using sanitary products their money is going directly to P&G. They'll be also paying tax, a little bit of tax on that will go to their own government. But these aren't paying any taxes, okay? They're not paying any taxes. So, why shouldn't British people be making sanitary products for British people, you see? And in that way, the woman, although she has to buy products for her menstruation, but in actual fact, these should be provided freely by the government, so that producing sanitary products for women would be a national industry. And, that's my understanding of socialism, is that some things are funded by the nation and run by the nation as a national necessity, because those are the things that people need, like, for example, transport, education, healthcare. And so then people's taxes go towards that. The government takes the taxes off the people and ploughs it back into areas that people need. So, and people complain about taxes, and I can't blame them complaining about taxes, because taxes are being misspent, abused, and they're not being put in the right places. So the point is if you're paying regular tax to the government, and, we remove these protections that are given to people on very high incomes who suddenly, the more money you earn, the less tax you pay kind of thing, that needs to go, okay? The tax should be relative to income, okay? So the more money you earn, the more tax you pay. And that's okay, because you're earning lots and lots of money anyway, and how much money do you really need? Now, the point that I'd like to make here is to people who, are saying, oh no, socialism, communism, Stalinism, and start conjuring up pictures of Hitler. I'd like to explain that what people need to understand is we have that choice of whether or not we want to pay taxes and have things like national transport, provision of sanitary products, free provision of sanitary products for women, an NHS providing free healthcare, free dentistry as well, which I think is a very important thing. Dentistry is very important to health, and I don't think we can ignore that. People can die through bad dentistry, through tooth problems. So, certain things have to be nationally provided to everybody, because everybody's got a right to these things. And the thing is that if the government's not providing them, then that means you're going to have to pay that, your own healthcare. You're going to have to pay an insurance company that will be making a profit. So, instead of your money going straight to providing healthcare and being ploughed into developing new health products and new treatments, instead of that, the money's going mostly straight into insurance providers' pockets, with only a portion of that going to the actual healthcare industry. And then even those, the healthcare industry then becomes, another market producing drugs. And I mean, there aren't any, I don't think there's many drugs corpse shown on here. But, they are producing these drugs and they are making money from them. So the thing is that when you have a nationally run health service and you're paying tax, and you don't have to then pay insurance for your healthcare, and you don't have to pay for your sanitary products, is no longer being taken off the household bill. Your transport, your national transport, trains and buses are run by the government, and yes, they are earning a little bit of profit as well for the government to be able to plough back in to upgrade and update, okay, but at the same time, the public, you as a member of the public, are not having to pay extortionate sums just to get from A to B on a very poorly run bus service that has really cut back on staff and the number of buses provided, and will just keep on cutting them and just point blank refuses to run any route that isn't profitable, you know. And so that means certain areas don't get a proper service, or that people, like for example where I live, at one time the bus, you know, previously the buses used to run from A to B, and they'd run through the town centre, and you could just sit on the one bus and pay the one fare. And so what they've done is they've made it so that all the buses have to stop in the town centre, and you have to get off and then catch another bus to the, you know, so it's even time consuming, but it earns more money for them because it means that you have to get 2 buses instead of just 1, you know. And a lot of places that did have a bus route no longer do, you know. You can no longer take a quick bus route from A to B and avoid the town centre, you know. The bus is going to go in the town centre. And so these are the kind of things that's going on, that how the corporations slow us down, and at the same time keep feeding this media and this dialogue about socialism and anything suggesting anything remotely nationalised industry. You know, ooh, we get an image, you know, Stalin suddenly conjured up. You know, I'm sorry, that's an extreme. That's an extreme, and this is what we want to avoid. But in promoting this, in promoting reasonable socialism, which actually, let's change that word today to humanism, okay, to humanist, okay, of that the minute that gets mentioned, you know, we've got to immediately be thinking about Stalin the moment we talk about nationalised industry and nationalised services, like providing a nationalised healthcare system. We need to remember that we've been brainwashed into thinking that these things were bad. And in Britain, for example, we were persuaded to give up a lot of our nationalised industries and services, and a lot of them have been handed over to private corporations who are still getting government money. Okay, that's the thing about them, is that they're still getting government money paid through taxes, but actually what they earn, their profits, do not stay in Britain. Okay, and they are providing, their whole ethos is about providing less and less of a service till eventually there is no service, and people are expected to pay for the service, and then the people haven't got the money, and it's a very cruel and callous way of relieving themselves of any responsibility, to the extent where they say, oh well, we'll just throw those people away, you know. And that is exactly what Britain did. They decided to just slash benefits and start just refusing to pay people benefits for the most spurious reasons, i.e. you're 5 minutes late to sign on for your unemployment benefit, therefore you're not going to have any money for 3 months, bye. You know, and what can that person do? What are they supposed to live on? And there are no jobs. It's not like the person would just say, oh, all right, then I won't claim unemployment benefit, I'll go and get a job. If it was that easy, they wouldn't be claiming unemployment benefit, which is a pittance anyway, you know. And a lot of people are being forced to work for their unemployment benefit. So, you know, what taxes are they generating in order to plough into the government's pay? You know, they're not, because they're being vamped by these corporations, you see. So all these products that we're using, that Britain used to make its own sweets and its own things. You know, yeah, we've still got factories in Britain. You know, a member of my family works in one of the factories that produce these things that used to be produced by a British family-run factory. And instead it's been taken over by this global corporation, and they've got everybody on 0-hour contracts. You know, and they really screw up. The machines break down, they forget to order stuff, or they run a line for a few months and decide it's not profitable and stop it. And each time they lay off their workforce for days, weeks, months sometimes. You know, just at the drop of a hat. Hardly anybody is employed, you know, with the regular, that they've got guaranteed wage at the end of the week. All of them, their employees, arrive through agencies, which are again another horrible thing, which, you know, I can understand the need of an agency, say, for example, a service like providing, you know, secretaries, sometimes, or teachers, because sometimes schools, a lot of teachers might get ill. A school might need a few supply teachers, okay, and it's agencies can have people on their books that will, you know, or an agency for DJs or something, you know. But when it comes to agencies running workforces, recruiting workforces that are going to work in a factory for a big corporation, okay, so the agency is also feeding off that worker's wage as well, because they've provided the employment. And so, you know, Nestle with its factory in Britain can go to its agent and say, oh, well, we need 30 workers this week, can you bring them in for us? There you go, there's your money. Yeah, here's your wages, workers, minus the money we've had to pay the agency to get you here. You know, I mean, these are the kind of things, and this is when people become numbers and they become easily expendable. Oh, the machines broke down, yeah, sorry, go away. No wages for you this week. Oh, but I'm going to pay me rent. Sorry. You know, and then they've removed social security because you can't immediately then go and sign on. Say, oh, well, I've lost 2 days. But you still earned above what you're supposed to, you know, what you're liable to earn to claim any benefits. So this is what I'm talking about, is the understanding that people, nations should be producing, they need to produce their own products for their own selves, and the government needs to provide things that everybody needs, because they can't be trusted to be run by corporations, because corporations are greedy, okay, and they're so greedy. These Coca-Cola was already very, very rich and wealthy. All of these were rich, wealthy companies, but look how greedy they are. They've had to take over every single. All of these used to be little family-run, individual national businesses that they've taken over. And it's, you know, it's serious. This person, these people, are we the people, okay? And that is why they are socialists. They are operating on a socialist level between themselves. Their socialism is for them as people. And the real people who are human beings, okay, they refer to as stock. You're there to manufacture the products and buy the products. And that's it. You don't get any other say. They will interfere with governments. They will, you know, profit from wars, illnesses. You know, everything imaginable is profitable for them. Every aspect of human life is profitable for them. And at the same time that they're profiting from all the so-called legitimate products, many of which are poisonous and dangerous. I mean, the amount of sugar products that these people make, and we do need to understand that sugar has a very large impact on the human brain, and especially yeast, as in wheat. With wheat, gluten has a very large impact on the human brain. It dumbs people down and it makes people ill. And these are promoting all of those because they know that the dumbed down human mind will, keep on producing these babies, and this woman being totally dumbed down, even though she might have a university degree, is totally dumbed down because she has never been allowed to wake up to the true extent to which she's being exploited still. And the very fact that she's expected to bring this child into the world, go through the pain, the agony, the worry, the grief, it's just the whole thing of raising a child and working to provide for that child, and then one day a corporation will come along and say, oh, thank you, right, you're going to work for me, you're going to be on 0-hour contracts, you're going to work in my school, because they're handing the schools over now to the corporations as well. And this idea that somebody from another country who's really got no allegiance to any particular country will be earning profits from your child, and yet what are these parents, because the dad as well is working to raise these children, okay, but the woman as the manufacturer, she's getting the least, okay, putting the most in, getting the least out, and he is expected to raise it, and he gets nothing. The corporation doesn't even want to provide them with a pension. It doesn't even want them to have a retirement. The corporations want people now to retire at 70. Well, most people are lucky if they live till 70. So where's your retirement then? So there is no retirement, is there? Retirement should be reasonably at 55. It should, in a humanist sense, it should be between 55 and 60, let people choose. Okay? But really people need at least, I would say, 15, 20 years to enjoy their retirement, spend time with the grandchildren, go on a tour to different places, visit places they've wanted to visit but they've been working, they've been too busy. Retirement should be a happy time, and the people who are retired are free. They also help their families, with babysitting and all kinds of things. These people, the pensioners, are a resource, as the same as a lot of the unemployed are a resource socially, in the sense that because they're not employed, they have time to do other things, and they do help people, even if that's only running errands for the elderly neighbour, So we need to take these things into account. Now, one of the points, I think that is a very fundamental point, actually, before I move on, that women do have to realise we are producing these children, we are manufacturing them, we are getting very little in return. The corporations are making a profit out of them. Now, the next point I'd like to make is the very fact that all these corporations are in huge debt to the banks because they've all borrowed huge sums from the banks in order to expand and, spread their tentacles out all over into every country, and, with their political lobbyings and things that they do as well behind the scenes. These have borrowed huge sums. They're all in debt to the banks. And the banks themselves are in debt because they funded all these huge corporations. So the banks are in debt, the corporations are in debt, and who do they expect to repay that debt? It's people, the family, okay? The human family is expected to repay the debt. And, you know, at the same time, the human family is expected to pay the debt. You know, the human family is going to be out in the rain, in the cold, struggling and in misery in order to pay their debts. And then we can't forget that the debts are criminal as well, because we know that they have been engaged in criminal and fraudulent activities, which I've explained in my previous video, Reclaiming the Silver Dollar, which shows all the fraudulent activities that they've been involved in, and the biggest, of course, is money laundering from drugs crimes. Okay, now we are being told, if we go back to this family here, that this family need protecting from drugs, the things that nature grows, you know, natural plants, apparently are illegal. Okay, so the same people that are telling this woman that she cannot make a choice about whether or not she's going to bring her life into this world, she shouldn't be allowed to terminate an unwanted pregnancy, okay, because it's unnatural, it's against the law. They want it to be like that. But at the same time, those same people are quite happy to see natural plants that God has created, the universe, banned. And people being told, no, you're not allowed to have those things. And this has caused such horror on earth. It's created massive amounts of crime. The police are very busy protecting us all from drugs criminals, apparently. Okay, it takes up huge police time and expense is spent on policing drugs and drugs-related crimes, shootings, thefts, addicts desperate for money, they'll commit crimes, and then we've got the added problem that we know without a shadow of a doubt today that people right to the very top of society are using all kinds of drugs. They're involved in selling them, they're involved in bringing them into the country. We only have to look at Afghanistan since Britain and America have moved in there. Opium production has risen by 800%. That's not an accident, So, apparently though, all of this crime and expense and horror that's created by trying to prohibit a universally created natural plant on Earth that humans will use and will want to use regardless of how many laws try to prohibit it, okay? Because once something's prohibited and it's an addictive substance, there will be people out there making sure that there's enough children in every generation can be addicted to those substances and willing to commit crimes to get them and earn money for people that end up being laundered by, the HSBC. So the family isn't being protected at all by prohibition against drugs. In fact, the family is under attack. Now, what would be a lot better is if prohibition against drugs was abandoned and instead we had prohibition against child abuse. Okay. And the way to establish prohibition against child abuse is by having child protection directives. Now, I'm not going to bring up the link here and go into the child protection directives now. I have done previous videos about them, but the EU child protection directives need to be made available, need to be implemented in every country and for every child on earth. And, you know, a lot of people, as soon as they hear the word EU, oh no, the European Union, oh, it's corrupt, blah, blah, blah. But the thing we need to understand is that not everything that comes out of the EU is necessarily part of the New World Order or, you know, a corrupt EU economic system. The people who make up the EU are a multiculture. They include people from ethnic backgrounds from all over the world. And these people have got together, a group of them. They've studied child abuse. They've looked at all the figures and facts. And they have developed child protection directives that do work. Not just to protect children and arrest criminals, but also to prevent child abuse. And until they're established, the risks that children aren't going to be abused, the risk of child abuse is increasing exponentially with every generation, because we know that children brought up within abuse are more likely to abuse when they get older or be further victims of abuse in adult life. I mean, the actual fact is that the majority, even though you'll hear it time and time again, that, you know, child abuse victims are more likely to, you know, are going to re-abuse. And I've even seen videos on YouTube of people warning people, stay away, you know, from people who've been abused as children. That's, you know, when you're thinking about having any kind of sort of relationship with somebody. You know, it really saddens me to hear it, because the actual truth is the majority of child abuse victims are females, okay? And the majority of perpetrators are males, okay? Now, I'm not saying that means there's something inherently wrong with the man, okay? But there is something inherently wrong with the concept of man that is being imposed on the male, and the concept of woman that is being imposed on the woman, and these false concepts, the gender constructs, are creating very confused psychologies, and in which men feel, you know, hatred towards women, and women often feel hatred towards men, and, you know, they're growing up with that, and of course abuse is going to happen, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And so, you know, the idea that everybody that abuses somebody has been abused themselves as a child is true in the broad sense, in that we're all born into this world, and this world is abusing us because it's being run by a very antiquated and dull consciousness that seeks only profit. And, you know, now it wants to impose a criminal debt, and a fictitious debt really, on our children, and on their children, and on their children, and on their children, and on it will go forever and ever and ever, because the interest rates, you see, the interest on the debt is ever increasing, so we can't actually even pay the interest. We're now paying the interest of the interest. So this is how the debt has accumulated, because these corporations, okay, they've borrowed huge sums off the bank, but the bank says to them, oh, well, it's okay, you can still earn a profit, all you have to do is pay us the interest of your loan each month, and everything else you can call profit. So a corporation can perhaps owe £1 billion to a bank, but they only have to pay a few million in interest every year on that billion, and all the rest they can claim as profits, you see. So are they really making any profits if they owe £1 billion to the bank? No. And then the corporation's profits increase and the bank says, oh, tell you what, I'll lend you another £1 billion if you like. Oh, thank you very much. We're going to go and expand in Germany now. We're going to go and buy up German family chocolate bar factories. And that is what they're doing. So, none of them are actually making any profits. All they're making is debt in return for producing these foods that really we don't need, and products, and actually vamping off the fact that we're human beings, half of us menstruate, in order to produce the next generation. So, why should the woman have to pay for her sanitary products? It should be something that's socially paid. And the same as I say with transport, everybody needs transport. I'm not saying people shouldn't own their own private family cars and things, but generally trains and buses are very, very useful and they should be paid for nationally. Okay, so we need a balance between, the government providing for our national external needs, because we don't want to live in a kind of society where it's every man for himself, and we can't do that. There'd be too many people left to face just horror, so we do need change, and what I'm trying to talk about here is how we're going to facilitate that change and why the change needs to be and what we need to be thinking about that will give us the encouragement and courage to firmly stand up for intelligence. And women have to get intelligent. Why are we bringing these children into this world? To pay a corporate debt, because that is what we're bringing them in for. Okay, that's the way the world is set up right now, is that these are going to belong to the corporation. What is the corporation giving you as a person? What is it giving you back? What do you get? When the child reaches 18, do you get a lump sum off a bank for producing a product that is going to earn them millions? You need to think about that, because they're thinking about it for their products. But of course children are a lot more than a product, aren't they? There's emotion and attachment there with them. There's love. And that's what the bankers do not have. So of course we don't want to be paid £20,000 for our child when it reaches 18. Okay. We don't want money for having children. So basically then woman would just be a whore, really. No, what we want is a society that is run in a balanced way, that exists to serve humanity and make life better for everybody and fair. So there's less crime, there's less abuse, there's more intelligence, there's more joy, there's less waste. That is the payment, this is what we need. A society that cares is worth bringing a child into. We know that child's going to be happy. We know that the chances of that child being abused are going to be very slim, because there's child protection directives there to protect them right from the start. And obviously, we know there's always going to be problems in life. Life is full of problems, and each problem is an opportunity to make life better and to resolve the problems. And as less and less children are getting abused every year, there will be less and less victims, less and less abusers arising out of them. Okay? And we do have to accept the fact that that the majority of people that have been abused as children actually make really good parents and really do their best to make sure that their children do not suffer the way they have because they have learnt something. It's actually a very small percentage of people that have been abused who will then go on to re-abuse. And in fact, the majority of people who have been abused will be victims of abuse in their adult life. And I think we all need to accept now that all of us have been abused just by the fact that we've been born into this world and live in an abusive economic system that does not doesn't bring love into the equation. You know, it deals with the bare bones of life. According to the present financial system, human beings are born to create a skeleton. Okay, that is what ultimately we produce, a skeleton, and that's what they bank on. They bank on the fact that we're going to die. You know, and they're making money, they're making profits out of cancer, out of illnesses. Why should anybody be making a profit out of the fact that people are suffering from cancer from eating the very products and crap that these are producing? It is like an Ouroboros, but, you know, a hellish thing. So, you know, we just need to have a look at a few facts. You know, here's some of the facts. So, women and girls are more likely to die relative to men and boys in low and middle income countries, with 3.9 million missing women and girls each year under the age of 60. Women represent 40% of the world's labour force. I mean, actually, it's probably 50% when you count the amount of unpaid work that they do, but hold just 1% of the world's wealth. Okay, you know, and they don't count a pregnant woman as working, and yet a woman just by being pregnant is working because her body is producing the next generation, and yet even in Britain, women are expected to work till they're about 7 months pregnant before they can take maternity leave, which is really disgusting, and especially when you think of how horrible the first 3 months of pregnancy are for most women, with headaches, excessive tiredness, sickness. I mean, it's just horrendous. Why should women have to work? Why are they doing it? They're doing it silently, they're suffering silently. It's so disgusting and wrong. Because especially when you look that the end product, when it becomes, the child has grown into an adult, is going to be working for these corporations and repaying the corporate criminal debt, okay? And she's expected to be working while she's working because her body's working. The moment she's pregnant, she's been sick, it's upset her whole system, has to readjust, her body's working, and yet she's expected to go and stand in a shop and serve people or sit behind a blooming banker's till somewhere till she's 7 months pregnant. And women put up with this without asking a single bloody question, but the bankers and the corporations don't even want to, you know, fork out to pay taxes towards helping women, or to even provide women with free sanitary products. And as I say, nothing's free, everything costs. So that's why things like sanitary products and healthcare need to be run by the government, that's funded with taxes or national insurance payments by everybody the same equally, and everybody gets a high standard of care, not a low standard of care because, oh, you know, it's the cheap, you're on Medicare, you can't afford the high premium health insurance of rich people, so you're not going to get as good health care as them. No, we want the high for everybody. And we want a kind of society where people aren't going to get that ill, because then that costs less to the system. You know, That's a system that works for humanity. It encourages a healthy humanity. A healthcare system that's running on profits encourages an unhealthy humanity, because otherwise how are they going to make any profits? It's a simple fact. So, and a lot of the way, the very fact this system is working the way it is because women were oppressed so much and have been cut out of the picture. And it's been a very male-dominated system that has just, runs its finances as if children just appear by magic. And, it runs the kind of, oh yeah, you can just ignore pregnant women. Oh, for goodness sake, oh what, we've got to give them maternity leave. Oh, well, I'm sorry, you wouldn't even have a business, you wouldn't even be here if these women weren't going through this. So, you do have to take that into account. But they're not. The only thing they're taking into account is their bloody numbers. Well, menstruation isn't a number, is it? So here's a few more statistics. Okay. Women are responsible for 60 to 80% of all house and care work. Globally, only 10 to 20 of every 100 landowners is a woman. Women account for 50% of informal employment globally. That means they're working cash in hand. Globally, 4 out of every 10 workers is a woman. That means, out of every 10 workers, women, there's only 4 women that are what you would call officially employed. Girls now outnumber boys in secondary school in 45 developing countries. Globally, over a third of women die in their reproductive years. Globally, a sixth of girls die in early childhood. 2 out of 5 girls are never born due to preference for sons, and that is happening a lot in India, where people are having scans to see if the babies are going to be a girl or a boy, and if it's a girl they terminate the pregnancy. It's just the labour force. Women account for 58% of unpaid employment. Nearly 4 million poor women go missing each year in developing countries. And, that's just missing. So this is from the UK Refuge and its domestic violence. 2 women are killed every week in England and Wales. This was from 2015. 1 woman killed every 3 days. 1 in 4 women in England and Wales will experience domestic violence in their lifetimes, and 8% will suffer domestic violence in any given year. 1 in 3 women globally will experience violence at hands of a male partner. Domestic violence has a higher rate of repeat victimisation than any other crime. Every minute, police in the UK receive a domestic assistance call, yet only 35% of domestic violence incidences are reported to the police. So, imagine what their call lines would be like if every woman suffering, or every person suffering domestic abuse called the police. In 2001-2, British Crime Survey found that there were an estimated 635,000 incidents of domestic violence in England and Wales. I can assure you it has risen since then. 81% of the victims were women and 19% were men. Domestic violence incidences made up nearly 22% of all violent incidences. So, 20% of children in the UK have been exposed to domestic abuse. 90% of domestic violence incidents in family households, children were in the same or next room. 62% of children in households where domestic violence is happening are also directly harmed. 30% of domestic violence either starts or will intensify during pregnancy. Fetal morbidity from violence is more prevalent than gestational diabetes or pre-eclampsia. So, this really is very disturbing, isn't it? That 30% of women will experience abuse from their partner during pregnancy. That's the first time that they'll experience it, when they're at their weakest point, that somehow that triggers some male aggression towards them. You know, what's going on in the male psychology, that when women are at their weakest point, they feel, you know, that's the point that they'll start being violent towards them. And, you know, a lot of that is to do, it's not with the fact because it's something to do with the male who's evil. Okay, that is not what it's about. It's the fact that the male is himself under such pressures, okay, and starts to resent the fact that the woman's pregnant for whatever reason, whether it's his own selfish things or because he feels inadequate or he's worried, he's scared that he's going to be a dad, and starts to resent the woman. You know, who knows what's going on in his mind, but we can guarantee that the very fact that all this violence is happening is because we're living in an imbalanced society and there are no humanist values that are given full credence. Okay, like I say, our police are way too busy policing drugs than they are protecting children, protecting women and children. And really, can the police even cope with it? You know? Because it's so bad, you know, it's epidemic, really. We're suffering an epidemic of domestic violence. And the reason why that is happening is because people are stressed. We know ourselves, if you get a group of animals and stick them all in a cage and feed a few more than you feed others, leave a lot without, you're going to have a lot of problems there. You know. And yes, human beings, we're not animals, but if you treat human beings like animals and don't give them any chance to express their humanity, then they are going to behave in their basic animalistic forms, you know. And I think the very fact that so many people now are participating in child sexual abuse is again a reflection of that. Approximately 85,000 women and 12,000 men are raped in England and Wales alone every year. That's roughly 11 rapes every hour. Okay. 31% of young women, this is in Britain, aged 18 to 24, so you're talking about a very narrow age group there, report having experienced sexual abuse in childhood. So that's a third, really, isn't it? It is around a third of young women report having experienced. But how many is that really then? Because this is from the NSPCC in 2011. It's probably more like 50 or 55, 60% have experienced sexual abuse in childhood. And this is what I mean about, you know, people who've been abused are likely to be abusers in adulthood. The majority of those women aren't going to abuse anybody, but I'll tell you now, the majority of them will be suffering abuse. Okay. And so, you know, there's certain judgments that we need to leave behind in this idea of judging the victims and making the victims pay for the crimes that have been committed against them, and expecting the victims to deal with their own pain and trauma. Okay, I'm sorry, it all does need to change. So then we've got this, which is about child trafficking, okay, and again, these figures, these tables here are based on what they know according to arrests that have been made, but it is understood that this is a very low figure, especially when it comes to children, because the children are so hidden. Very few actually get identified, so there's probably, this figure's huge, the amount of children that are being trafficked, and we know that thousands of children are being trafficked into Britain every year, and also child trafficking victims, okay, are disappearing from UK care at an alarming rate. Now, understand what this means. Of the very few children, because we know thousands, the UN has told us, and these are from proper, well-established studies. Thousands of children are being trafficked into Britain every year for all kinds of abuse, from slavery. Mostly it's child sexual abuse. Only a very small portion are because they're going to go to a family that want to adopt a child. But child trafficking victims that have been identified and taken into UK care have then disappeared. Okay. And, this was in 2015, this article, I think. So, new research by child trafficking NGO EPCAT UK and the charity Missing People has found that 167 of the 590 children suspected or identified as child trafficking victims in the year from September 24 to 2015 vanished from foster and care homes across the country. Okay, now these are numbers that the bankers can just ignore. This is separate from their economy. The corporations don't take part in this, do they? Yes, they do. Okay, the people who work for the corporations, the people who work for the bankers, the people who work for the corporate governments, because Britain's government is a corporation. Britain's councils are now corporations, and this is what I mean about how we need to get rid of these corporations, dismantle them. Okay. So what is happening? Because a trafficked child in care is very, very vulnerable, aren't they? There's absolutely got nobody at all, and they've been going missing. An additional 593 of the 4,744 unaccompanied children placed under the protection of local authorities also went missing, at least once in the same time period. Where did they go missing to once? Of the 760 trafficked or unaccompanied children who disappeared from care, 207 have never been found. Now, I've got a report, which I haven't got the link up here, but I have got the government study report that was from a similar study like this, and they found that up to around 200 babies under the age of 1 go missing from care and foster care every year in Britain. 200 babies, okay, just go missing, never found again. And this is the psychology that's operating behind the banks, behind the corporate media. At the moment they're all about Trump, aren't they? Look at them all, Trump, immigrants, and blah blah blah. It goes on and on. This is the agenda. This is the media. This is what we're supposed to be looking at. Oh, what's Trump said now? Who can we have instead of Trump? This all needs to go. It's a facade. And what's happening to children is a reality. Okay, that facade, behind that facade, serious, terrible things are happening to a lot of children, and we do need to start looking out for them, because they are human beings. And, you know, all these people that are so bothered about abortion, like, for example, you know, this guy in Oklahoma telling women that they're a host and they've got to give birth to children, even if they've got no money or they're ill or whatever. He wants to make it difficult for women to terminate a pregnancy. Apparently every child is sacred and must be born. What for? What for? So they can be enslaved to pay a corporate debt, so they can be trafficked, so they can be sexually abused. So 30% of the female ones will be reporting sexual abuse as children. This is absolutely incredible. You know, it is incredible what women and children especially, and I know that men suffer domestic abuse as well, but, you know, as I say, if as many women and children were not suffering abuse from this antiquated so-called male construct that's governing us all, then, you know, there wouldn't even be as many men suffering abuse, either from women or men, you know. So we have to address the problem from where it is worst first, and then by doing that, you know, the problems where it isn't so bad, it will get less as well. You know, that is what I'm trying to say. So we've got to focus on this as persecution of the woman. That is what has been going on. We cannot deny it, we can't avoid it. It's persecution of the female. Persecution against the child. It is basically devouring the child's consciousness before they even have time to wake up into adulthood. They are being dragged into abuse, abusive sexuality, and our sexuality is the core of our being. It's sacred. If you mess it up, it messes up the human being. You know, it perverts, it causes perversions. Children trafficked in UK may number thousands. Of course it does number thousands, because the ones that have been identified are just the tip of the iceberg. You know, I mean, I've seen reports in, where was it, the Daily Mail, I think this one is, you know, and this was their take on the UN 2014 United Nations Child Protection Report for Britain. You know, and yeah, thousands are being trafficked into Britain, and some of them even murdered. They, you know, they do state that hundreds of children are trafficked into Britain every year to be murdered in ritual abuse. Okay, into pseudo-religious ceremonies. Now, you know, the head of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, Chris Steinberg, who wrote the report, said hundreds of children have been abducted from their families in Africa and trafficked to the UK, especially in London. Many are raped and sexually abused. The true figure, however, runs into thousands. In other words, there is a vast reservoir of children gathering in our own capital, anonymously shuffled from flat to shabby flat. A dark pool feeding child exploitation and misery across the planet. It begins, of course, with money. Britain's generous child benefit system has become an international magnet for fraudsters. I mean, you know, trust the Mail, because this is what I mean now. The media control everything. And, you know, they're trying to suggest that the pittance of child benefits that's paid, because it's not generous, it's the pittance of child benefits that's paid out in this country, is what's a magnet for child trafficking. Oh, quick, let's go and get some children from Africa so we can get the family allowance for them each week. I mean, it's absolutely bloody ridiculous. We know why they're bringing them in, because they're making money out of them as the prostitution, child pornography that they call it, you know, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And, you know, there is a massive industry in child abuse. They make a lot of money out of it. And it does also fund the drugs industry. You know, people buy drugs with the money they make. The money they make is laundered through the banks as well. They set up businesses as a front, even pay taxes with these businesses as a way of laundering the money that they're making through child abuse. Child abuse and drugs are very, very closely connected. A lot of children, especially young teenage girls, are enticed into prostitution by being made dependent on drugs by, you know, a pimp that will introduce himself as a boyfriend, and next minute he's got her addicted, and then next minute the only way she's going to get them drugs or money to buy them is by engaging in prostitution. And it is slavery. It's slavery. So, and often these girls they pick on are already very poor, they're impoverished, they've already come from abusive backgrounds, because we know damn well in poverty there's more upset and angst and abuse. It's as simple as poverty is child abuse. When you see children living in poverty, alarm bells should ring, because that is abuse. So, in India, please find babies in biscuit boxes for travelling. Okay, and they even state here that some of the children were destined for the UK. They believe that more than 30 children, it'll be more like bloody 300 children, you can guarantee, were sold over a 2-year period to families in the capital Delhi, the South Indian city of Chennai, and also to couples overseas, including the UK. You know, but they won't have been sent to couples. So, you know, this is the kind of world that this corporation, with its happy smiley face products and its happy smiley face advertisements and its oh so entertaining films and soaps and its news medias and its governments that it controls and creates and runs, you know, that's the reality of what is going on for women and children, and quite a large percentage of males as well, you know. And meanwhile, the men that aren't going through that, even the men that are perpetrating these things, they're suffering as well. They're not happy. Obviously they're not, because nobody who does those things are happy, really, are they? You know, what kind of person has to abuse a child or even kill a child in order to feel happy, in order to feel satisfied? So, you know, these are important points, and that's why I've taken the time and trouble to make this video and all my other videos, you know, is to, in the hope that women especially will wake up and will start asking some really radical questions about a really radical level of insidious and ongoing oppression that is denying us our rights, denigrating us, feeding off us, right, and giving us nothing in return, making us pay, even for the fact that we menstruate, you know, and, you know, and then claiming that humanist things, you know, like having a national health service is, you know, socialist and therefore Stalinist, is really disgusting. And we just need to shut those people up who, the moment they hear the word socialist or humanist, start going on about Hitler and bloody Stalin. You know, just go away, you're extremists, and anybody who would deny any nation its own health and transport system is really, what kind of person are you? What, you want to see people dying of cancer on your street? Would that give you pleasure to be walking around witnessing people dying of illnesses that you can get treated if it happens to you, you know, because you're superior? This is madness. That madness has to stop. We have to accept that people who think they're superior and should be controlling everyone and everything are actually insane. Okay, we all need to control ourselves, and the law is what we need, you know. And in all my videos I promote universal law of abundance in compassion, you know, and that is the law that Jesus promoted. That is the law that we are supposed to live by, that was created for us to live by naturally, as these trees create oxygen, okay, and the grass, the plants create food for us to grow. We can't criminalise a plant, and we can't stop people from using those plants, okay? But what we can do is criminalise people who would abuse children and women and even men. We can protect our children, so we need to invest time, effort, money, funding into protecting our children, and part of that is providing them with a clean and healthy environment to live within, both socially, as a psychological human consciousness, and also environmentally as a natural ecological resource. You know, our planet needs help, and these corporations, they are vampires. They really don't care. They'll make a mess anyway, and nobody's responsible, because, oh yes, they're people when it comes to them having more human rights, only their human rights satisfied, okay, oh, then the people. But when it comes to somebody paying and cleaning up and owning up to their crimes, suddenly they don't. They're not a person. There's nobody who can take responsibility, and they get a little fine and a slap on the wrist. So, you know, I'm not saying that we should get rid of capitalism. Like I say, there is a, you know, capitalism is a part of life that we accumulate and save up for the rainy day. But we are never going to be able to save up for a rainy day in this system, because the only people who are going to be protected from rainy days are the corporate people, and the real people, who the corporations call stock, are expected to feed this government as a democracy. And that's the most ridiculous thing of all, that as a democracy we've supposed to have voted for this, and we haven't, and that's why we know it's a lie. They're vampires, okay? They're psychopaths, and they've always been psychopaths. They've been there for centuries, feeding off the most despicable, vile judgments against humanity, and especially against women and children. They've called children minors, which means lesser, unimportant. How dare they? Children are VIPs, okay? Very fragile. Handle with care. Yes. And this is what we need to do. So, I'm sorry, I know I've made another long video, and people probably think I'm really rambly and whatever, but I feel so passionate. I'm so desperate to wake people up, and anybody that's listened to this, I thank you. And it's an hour and a half long already. I hope it's helped you. I hope it's empowered you. I hope it's given you ideas. And, you know, God bless. That's all. Thank you.